something that people never get tired of is energy. Another thing that people never get tired of is preparation. Another thing that people never get tired of is a provocative, well-thought point of view. And those are things that I always encourage you to bring to your presentations, no matter how small they are. Now, the second thing that I want to recommend is around preparation. The Beatles, before they got signed, played 626 live shows. And when I think about that, I think about the ways that we as technical professionals can prepare before we present. I mean, it's kind of funny if you think about the fact that we'll spend 800 hours on a technical project, but 8 minutes on the presentation preparation. It's weird, right? And it represents a massive distortion in how we can value our time in preparing for ultimately a presentation that could change our careers, our companies, and our clients' lives. And so something that I really encourage everybody to do here is just practice a lot. Something that I didn't mention earlier on is I'm also a musician. Actually, I went to music school first. And I think something that musicians do really well is we're used to this idea of practicing in isolation by ourselves for hours and hours and hours. So the notion of preparing for a presentation is not something that's arduous or a surprise to us. It's something that musicians are very, very used to. So again, something that I encourage you to do is to practice a lot. And something that I'll tell the story of really quickly is how when I took the PowerSpeaking class, I absolutely cringed when Carrie had to go through a video recording of me presenting to the audience. And something that they do in class that Carrie didn't mention on this is that they'll record you giving a speech for 2 minutes, and then they'll take you aside and give you feedback and point out what you're doing in the presentation. Now, that's really cringe for everybody to deal with, but it's one of the pathways to getting way, way better at this skill. So again, don't be afraid to differentiate. Don't be afraid to bring energy and a provocative point of view, but most importantly, don't be afraid to be like the Beatles and play those 626 shows before you finally get that record deal.
Did they ever record your courses or any of your concerts that you did? And then make
Yeah, sure.
We had to record every single week our lesson. And every single week we had to come back and say, this is what we didn't do right. This is what needs to be better. And for those of you who listen to public speakers and are coaching some public speakers or have people in your organization who are speaking, that feedback is invaluable. You don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to be overly critical, but just saying, hey, these are the things that you did really, really well. Focus on these 2 things for the next time. And for me, even as somebody who continuously does this, and I think all of June and May, I did nothing but conferences. It's still really helpful to me as somebody who does this often. And for the people that I mentor as well, one of the things that they really like is when they get that feedback, because it really does help them up level and understand what's good, what could go better, just across the board.
Absolutely, Sarah. Yeah, just a few things I'd love to add, and then we're going to close with your parting advice. I really appreciated that you talked about leading with what really works, because we want to lean into our strengths, the things that we naturally do well. And then as it relates to upgrades, especially for those of you where voice modulation, pause, descriptive gestures, etc., might not come naturally, remember, it can be incremental. It can be incremental improvement. But like golf, focus on 1 or 2 things at a time, and you can keep getting better and better. Just the last thing I'll add, it couldn't be easier than ever in this virtual world in which we operate. You're on recorded sessions all the time. So it doesn't even have to be a formal presentation you might want to play back, but you might want to play back how you interacted within a meeting. How are you showing up? And you'll quickly see some blind spots and opportunities for that incremental improvement. Okay.
Can I make one comment really quick? James is saying that to take feedback, it's hard to be humble, but important to truly listen. Yes, absolutely. And also one of the things that I do my best to fulfill, and also ask the people that I'm giving feedback to, is not to respond in any way, shape, or form when I give them the feedback. So to that extent, sometimes I'll give it to them written and say, hey, sit on this for 24 hours, see what you think. Then we're going to come back and discuss it, because it gives time for it to set in, and it dissipates that idea of fight or flight, so that there doesn't feel like there needs to be a reaction, and it doesn't feel like it's confrontational. And that really seems to help people take that next step.